Welcome everyone, and already it's Erev Shabbos, Thursday night, a good Erev Shabbos, as we learn this special segment called For the Shabbos Table, for Parshas Tazria. This is also important now when the main Chumashir is on Inyana D'Yayma. This week's Chumashir is, of course, was on the glorious mitzvah of matzah. So therefore we're learning now for the Shabbos table for Parshas Tazria. This segment is made possible by a grant from the Reuben family, who makes it possible, and they have a request to Hashem that they should be zeicha to a ben zachar. May it be the will of Hashem so, and they should have atzlacha and ruchnius and in gashmius. And speaking about a ben zachar, we know it says v'isha kisazriya, Isha Kisazriya, V'yolda Zachar, and has a boy. So there's a Gemara in Nida on Daf Lamed Aleph from the base. The Gemara in Nida on Daf Lamed Aleph from the base tells us, La'olam yispalol adam lebanim zecharim. A person should always pray for male children. Now here's a very fascinating shaila that was asked to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Somebody had many boys, and he didn't have a girl. So he asked Reb Chaim if he's allowed to daven for a girl. And the idea to daven for a girl is to fulfill the mitzvah of Peri V'Rivya. The mitzvah of Peri V'Rivya is to have a boy and a girl. So here he had like 6 boys. So he asked him, is it proper to daven for a girl so that he can be mekayim the mitzvah of Peri V'Rivya? Reb Chaim said no. The Gemara says, "La'olam yispal adam lebanim zacharim," and when the Gemara says "la'olam," it means la'olam. Now, we know that there's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch, interesting halacha, that when you have a child, you make a bracha. Child is a blessing, but when you have a boy, the bracha is hatov v'meitiv, and when you have a girl, the bracha is shechianu. There's a lot of discussion, why is the bracha on a boy hatov v'meitiv, and a girl it's a shechianu. So one shot, interesting, there's a sefer called Pninei Halacha. The Pninei Halacha says that it's because when you have a boy is obligated to honor his parents without interruption. Even when he's married, he still has a chiyuv to honor his parents. A girl, on the other hand, if her husband says he's moving to Timbuktu, so she has to move to Timbuktu, and she's can't fulfill the mitzvah of kibbud av v'ein. And it says if a husband says he wants her to do this and not do kibbud av v'ein, then she has to listen to her husband. So therefore, a girl's length of kibbud av v'ein is less than a boy's. And therefore, that's why I make a bigger bracha, hatov v'meitiv, on a boy. Of course, whenever I didn't have it often, but I had some times where a husband came to me and said, could you tell my wife that she doesn't have a mitzvah of kibbud av v'ein if I say it interferes with us? Now that's the halacha. But I told them, listen, if you want your wife to stick around a long time, you should let her be mekayim kibbud av v'ein. Because it says, so if you don't want your wife to stick around for a long time, so get in the way of kibbud av v'ein. But if you want her to stick around a long time, let her be mekayim kibbud av v'ein. It's fascinating that one of the reasons why we make the bracha of hatov v'meitiv on a boy, it's because that a boy, why does the Gemara say la'olam yispal adam lebanim zecharim? Because the Gemara says noiled ben zachar. Let me just give you the exact lashon of the Gemara. The Gemara says that Kevan sheba zachar la'olam ba shalom la'olam. When a boy comes to the world, peace comes to the world. And the reason why peace comes to the world is because Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam. And shalom is everything. Shekol ha'Torah kula nitna la'aseh shalom ba'olam. You have to understand that. So therefore, since shalom is the centrality of the Torah, it's the mission statement of the Torah. And a boy who learns Torah brings that peace. That's why we make a shalom zachar on a boy, right? Because he brings that. So therefore, it gets a heightened bracha of atayva meitu. While a bracha on a girl, it's a big simcha, also a girl. I have 4 girls. My life is so much fuller because of my daughters. And I have wonderful son-in-laws because of them, and such beautiful grandchildren because of them. It's a shechianu, no question about it. But it seems to be from this psak of Rav Chaim an interesting thing, that if a person only has boys, he shouldn't feel sad that he didn't fulfill the mitzvah of Perivariv. Because in the Gemara, it's interesting. The Gemara in Shabbos says that the first question that a person will be asked in the next world is Nosata v'nosata be'emunah. Did you do business with integrity? The next question is Kavata itim l'Torah. Did you make fixed times every 12 hours of the day to learn Torah? The third question is Osakta b'pirya v'rivya. Did you occupy yourself in Pirya V'rivya? It doesn't say Kiyamta Pirya V'rivya. Did you fulfill Pirya V'rivya? First of all, it's not up to you. But more than that, according to Reb Chaim, we're always supposed to ask for boys. The success is not to have necessarily a boy and a girl. It's interesting that I cleared the Shaila. I never saw anybody talk about it. But let's say, after my Bechor, Nehemiah, who had a Pidyon Aben, I had my wife, Aleh Shalom, Levi, and I, she had it, she did the work, right? We had our first daughter, Chani. And at the time, I declared that maybe I should make a then a Tova Meitiv, not a Shechianu. Why? Because we fulfilled the mitzvah of Perivariv with that birth. But we made a shechianu. That's the halacha. But the ma'isa is, I cleared another shaila now. I didn't have the time to really be ma'ayin into it. You know, you make the bracha of atayva meitiv when you share something with someone. That's the halacha. So, for example, if you buy an expensive piece of furniture in the house, you make atayva meitiv. Why? Because you use that expensive dining room set with your wife. So you make atayva meitiv. If you, for example, buy a very expensive suit, you make a shechianu, because you're benefiting it for yourself. If you buy your own personal car, you make a shechianu. If the two of you together are using the car, you make atayva meitiv. What would be chas v'shalom if the mother dies in pregnancy? Will you still say make atayva meitiv? Or then maybe you make shechianu. So that's an interesting shaila, but that's beyond the scope of this shir. So here we have a famous Gemara. It's a Gemara in Nedarim, Daf Lamed Beis, that trumpets. The Gemara trumpets. The Gemara proclaims the greatness of the bris milah, quoting the pasuk, "Gedayla milah shel malehi." If it wouldn't be for the milah, like bara kadosh baruch hayolamai, Hashem wouldn't have created the world. Shenemar im loy brisi yomam v'layla chukas shemayim v'aretz li something. Now the Gemara says the exact same pasuk on Torah. Gedola Torah. So here the Gemara says Brisi refers to the Torah. So there's a fascinating Rabbi Kiva Eger. Rabbi Kiva Eger asks a Pasha Kasha. He says when it comes to Torah, the pasuk fits like a glove. There's a mitzvah of Torah both day and night. And some people stay up late in the night, and some people get up early in the morning. So you have Torah throughout the day and night. So but ask Rabbi Kiva Eger, Mila is only b'yayim. If you do Mila b'layla, it's not a kosher Mila. The only night that they did Mila was in Pesach. It says that they did Mila on the night of Pesach. What happened is it says that they roasted, many people were afraid to do Mila, understandably so. You're asking 50-year-olds, 70-year-olds to do Mila. They were afraid. So Hashem brought a wind from Gan Eden, it's a medrash, and when they were roasting the Korban Pesach, so they smelled the smell of Gan Eden. And they weren't allowed to eat the Korban Pesach until they did the Mila. And to get that unworldly smell, that caused everybody to do the Mila. But they did it in the night. So the Medrash asks, how could they do it in the night? So the answer is, Laila Kiyom Yoyer. That the night that we went out of Mitzrayim, the sun stayed out. And that's the way that the Per Aaron, Zechtav Kosh Avracha, Schus Yagan Aleinu, Hashem Yimkum Damai, says a different shot in Manishtana. Manishtana halayla hazeh mikol halaylos. How different is this night from all the other nights? This night, and he says, and many others say, that's why unlike other Yomim Tovim, most of the mitzvahs are day-based. Shofar has to be in the day. Megillah has to be in the day. The mitzvah of Lulav and Esrik has to be in the day. But all these mitzvahs have to be in the night. The Arbakaisis is in the night. Matzah Mor is in the night. Pesach is in the night. Why? Because Laila Kiyom Yor. Because then it was day. And this also is, that there's a famous Goin. The Goin says that if you calculate it, you'll see that on the night of the Seder, there's 64 mitzvahs. It's an amazing Goin. 64 mitzvahs. It's like no other night. This was Manishtana Halayla Hazeh. So, ask Rabbi Kiva Eger, since bris is only in the day, normally if you do bris in the night, it's a puzzle bris. If God forbid they did a bris in the night, they waited and they made a mistake and they did it after Tzeitzah Kechavim, sure, after 72 mitzvahs, the bris is no good. They're going to have to do again Hatafas Dam bris. So what do you mean, Im Loi Brisi Yom V'Layla? It's not Yom V'Layla. That's Rabbi Kiva Eger's kasha. Because of this kasha of Rabbi Kiva Eger, the Taisus Yom Tov learns a very big chiddush. He says, you got to read the pasuk different. Im loy brisi, if not for my bris mila, yom v'layla chuka shemayim v'aretz leisamti. The statutes of day and night of the heaven and earth would not continue. Because it's not, brisi can't be yom v'layla, because bris mitzvah is not yom v'layla. That's the way the Taisus Yom Tov learns pshat. So Rabbi Kiva Eger says that's a doichik pshat. This is a doichik pshat. To say that the pasuk is that way, that's a doichik pshat. So there's Rav Label Katz in his Sefer Oyel Aryeh. He says in the Mishnayos there's something called Likutim al Mishnayos. And in the Likutim HaMishnayos, he learns as follows. He says, most mitzvahs we don't do when we're sleeping. Right? We don't do when we're sleeping. But the bris we have when we're sleeping. And that's pshatim loy brisi yomam v'layla. If not for my bris milah that's on me day and night, al bris shel samta b'v'sareinu, the world wouldn't. Now, what does it mean by Torah? It probably means, if you're going to learn it the same way by Torah, it means that when we sleep, it's also Torah. Because we sleep in order to be able to pay attention in the shir. If we didn't sleep, we wouldn't be able to pay attention in the shir. So my sleep is also Torah. Everything is Torah. That's the famous, very famous Tosfos in Brachas. Tosfos asks in Brachas, why is Torah different than Sukkah? The din is by Sukkah that if Gedalia goes into breakfast in his Sukkah and makes a Leisha B'Sukkah, and then he gives 3 lessons before lunch. When he goes into the Sukkah by lunch, he makes another Leisha B'Sukkah. That's the halacha. But if Gedalia comes to daven in Lutsk, we're not Zoycha here, goes to Lutsk, and he learns the daf, then gives 3 lessons, and then by lunch looks at the Mishnah Yomis, he doesn't make another Birchas HaTorah. So Tosfos asks, why is it different? It's a big kasha. Why is it different? So one answer, which is a beautiful answer, it's not Tosfos' answer. But one answer is because it says in the bracha, Asher kitshanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu la'asayk b'divrei HaTorah. The bracha is Esek HaTorah. When Gedalia gives his lessons, and he's nice to the people, and he's making a Kiddush Hashem, or he doesn't waste the time of his employer, and he does his lesson diligently, he's fulfilling Torah. He's Osek b'Torah. He never stopped la'asayk b'divrei HaTorah. That's one answer. Eating a sukkah, he stopped the sukkah. Tosfos says a remarkable answer. Tosfos says a yidn is never masiach das from Torah. Tosfos says, Mark, he might go to work, but he's looking forward to getting on the Zoom. So even when he's working, he's not masiach das from Torah. When we sleep, we're also doing it for Torah. Because it says, Hech shemitzvah kemitzvah. I always tell people, you wanna make your sleep a heftzah shel mitzvah? Then sleep in order to daven better, in order to learn better. Then your sleep becomes learning. But I want to give a different answer. I'm going to be bold to answer Rabbi Akiva Eiger's question. You know, they used to make fun of people. You're going to answer Rabbi Akiva's you're going to answer Rabbi Akiva's question. You think you're smarter than Rabbi Akiva Eiger. So of course I'm not. I'm just, not privy to why the Rabbi Akiva Eiger is not saying like me. But it also says Makam Hanichu Avoisai Liskadalba, that nobody could say, well, if they didn't say this, why? Well, how could I say it if my predecessors didn't say it? Because Hashem always leaves room for every generation to grow. So I want to say a different pshat. There's Mila day and night. Because when it's night over here, it's day in Eretz Yisrael. So there is brisi yomam v'layla. Wherever I am now, im loy brisi yomam v'layla, if there isn't a bris day and night, meaning that when it's not here, it's on the other side of the world. So it is day and night. And I told you that this is the reason the Chassam Sofer says that you need to have Purim in Shushan Purim. Because if not, if Purim would be the same in the whole world, then that means the whole world would be drunk. So then there wouldn't be learning. But if there wouldn't be learning, then the world wouldn't be able to survive. But it's a mitzvah. So at the time of Adal Yada, they can't fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. So the answer is that's why we need a Shushan Purim. So that when they're drunk on Purim, so the people in the walled cities from Yeshua ben Nun, they're not drunk, they're learning. So there's always learning. Now, while we're talking about this Im Leibrisi Yamam V'Layla, there's a famous Chazal that David HaMelech was in the bathhouse. And he said, Oili, that I'm Oram min ha-mitzvahs, that I'm naked for mitzvahs. Why? Because in the bathhouse, he's not wearing talis and tefillin. And he can't learn Torah. He can't even think Torah because you're not allowed to think Torah in the bathhouse when you're naked. So he said, Oili, until he remembered that he has a milah. And therefore he says, Sos anoichi alim rasecha. Now that's different. You'll say, then why didn't he say Oili when he's sleeping? He also is not wearing talis and tefillin. The answer is that then he's in a house with a mezuzah. But in the bathhouse, there's no mezuzah. So he felt bereft of any mitzvah until he remembered that he had his milah. Now, milah is a very big thing. It says there's always two isis, tefillin and milah. And on Shabbos, when we don't have tefillin, Shabbos is an ice. Isi beini uveinecha. So there's a Chassam Sofer. It's a very fascinating, very fascinating Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer says that when David was in the Beis HaMerchatz, it doesn't mean literally the bathhouse. It means when he was washing himself spiritually and trying to find the imperfections in his mitzvahs. He says he went through every mitzvah saseh and he couldn't find a mitzvah saseh that he did with complete purity, without any personal pniya. Because whatever we do, we have a personal pniya. I mean, it says when you wear tefillin, Hashem aleim yichyu, it brings arichas yamim. It said your lisatef batzitzis is good for, it protects a person from anger. That's what it says when you wrap yourself in the talis. The Chavetz Chaim says it protects you from anger. It says that lisatef batzitzis lamed beis is 32 because we have 32 teeth, and talis is good for the teeth. He says he felt bad until he remembered the milah. The milah he did completely shem shemayim, because his father did it for him. He didn't do it. He had no personal pniya. It's kula l'shem shemayim. That's what he says. Sos anoichi alim rasecha. The way the Chassam Sofer learns. But I want to share with you now an amazingly important lesson. The Gemara asks in Nida Daf Lamed Aleph, why is Milah b'Shmeina? Why is Milah on the 8th day? Now you have to understand that this is a very basic question, because holiness is always the 7th day. Shabbos is 7. Shemitah is 7. Yovel is 7 sevens. Svira is 7 weeks. Sukkot is 7 days. Shmini Atzeres is a Yom Tov B'fnei Atzma. Pesach is 7 days. Why is Milah on the 8th day? So the Gemara in Nida says a remarkable answer. Remember, you have to remember this is in the olden days. Today, because we're machmir with ziva, so it's different. But in the olden days, a woman gave birth to a son. Isha Tazria v'yolda zacher. So she's tamei 7 days. And then she could go to the mikveh, and by a boy, she gets 14 days of tara. This is not true today because of chumras that we adapt. But according to the Torah's literal sense, she's tamei 7 days, and then she's given 2 weeks of dam tar, that even if she bleeds, she's permitted to her husband. So the Gemara says, if the milah would be on the 7th day, they would make the 7th day a party, and everybody would be happy with the great mitzvah, and the father and the mother would be sad, because they're forbidden to one another. They're still forbidden. We can't have that everybody should be happy and the father and mother should be sad. So therefore we make the milah on the 8th day. She could go to the mikveh the night of going into the 8th, and then the next morning she could hug her husband, and therefore we do the milah on the 8th day. It's very romantic. It's a Gemara Nida. But you don't realize the significance of this. Do you know how powerful Milah Bizmana is? Milah Bizmana is doichet tzaras. You know, if somebody has leprosy, it's a terrible issur in the Torah to cut off the leprosy. But if on the 8th day there's leprosy on the baby's organ, to fulfill the mitzvah of Milah, we cut it off. Because Milah is doichet leprosy. If the 8th day falls out on Shabbos, Milah is doichet Shabbos. If the 8th day falls out on Shabbos Yom Kippur, what could be holier than that? Milah is doichet Shabbos Yom Kippur. Now Milah should have been on the 7th day. But then there's shalom. Then there wouldn't be shalom bayis. Milah is doichet Shabbos Yom Kippur tzaras, but shalom bayis is doichet Milah. If there's not going to be shalom bayis, that pushes Milah another day. That's how important shalom bayis is. A husband and wife are not getting along. How could they make a simcha? It's a tremendous lesson on how important shalom bayis is. Now, there's another reason why Milah is the 8th day. It says in the Zohar that the baby has to see the matronisa tchila. It has to see the matron first. It's not safe for a baby to go through a Milah before it experiences a Shabbos. So therefore, in order to ensure that every baby would get Shabbos, Milah is on the 8th day. That's one of the reasons we make a Shalom Zachar. Because the reason why it's pushed off to the 8th day is that the baby should experience a Shabbos. That gives the baby strength. I just want to finish off. And of course, we thank again the Rubin family for making this segment possible. We know Adam Kiya Arbisara, but Arbisara, we know we talk about leprosy. We talk about the spiritual disease of leprosy. This is not a physical malady. This is not a dermatological situation. Because you don't go to a doctor, you go to a kohen. This is a spiritual calamity. And the Gemara says that the number one cause of leprosy, of Mitzorah, is Motzi Ra. Person talks Lashon Hara. Chavetz Chaim writes that today people are not so perturbed because they know there's no tzaras today. Nobody's going to get something that's going to make them leave the camp and make them stay away from people. But the Chavetz Chaim quotes, and this is one of the ancient holy svarim, the Chavetz Chaim quotes the Sefer HaKona. The Sefer HaKona says that today, when there's no leprosy, the exchange, instead of leprosy, people become poor. Because that's what it says. Mitzorah chashav kameis, and ani chashiv k'meis. So instead of leprosy, people become poor. Chafetz Chaim says people don't realize that they become impoverished because they're listening and speaking bad about people. And he then writes something that's even scarier. We know that the Torah is nidreshes michlal hein at shemei alav. That from the positive we deduce the negative. That's the famous Me'amlois. The Amlois says, why does it say kabed asavicha v'esimecha laman yarichun yamecha? But we're supposed to serve Hashem shelo yamanas l'kabel pras. Supposed to serve Hashem not for reward, not for tips. So Rashi tells us, Mamlois tells us that mechlal heina tishmei alav. If you don't honor, then chas v'shalom, a person won't live long. And that's why it says, why do people check mezuzahs? Every time they have a problem, they check mezuzahs because it says u'saftam al mezuzahs beisecha v'sharecha l'man yir b'yameichem. You don't have a mezuzah, you might not have yir b'yameichem. So the Chafetz Chaim says, look what it says, Mio ish ha'chafetz Chaim, who wants life? Nitzar l'shayin chameira. He says, a person that doesn't want life won't guard their tongue. It's dangerous to have a loose tongue. It's very dangerous. You know, people ask me what to do. They come home and their wife is talking on the phone a mile a minute about gossip. So I said it's a big problem because you don't want to become your wife's mashgiach. The most unpopular person in the yeshiva was the mashgiach. You don't want to be unpopular. But on the other hand, it's not healthy for your wife to be talking Lashon Hara. You have to figure out a way. You know, it says, Ish nitfas al anshe beisai. A man is held accountable for the people in his home. So it says, a Rav is nitfas al anshe iroi. Usually the best thing to do is to say to your wife, look, you know, I think that because we talk a lot about the children, about this one, about that one, it's a good idea if together we learn the laws of Lashon Hara. Get one of the Chafetz Chaim Heritage Foundation's wonderful books and learn together. That's the best answer. And we want to thank you all very much for making this shir possible. I want to point out that I did this week a wonderful shir called The Glorious Mitzvah of Matzah. It should be available on TorahAnytime.com by 11 o'clock tonight, and then afterwards. It's also available now already on YouTube and on other, like Kalaloshin. If you do look at the many shiurim I have on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to subscribe to my shiurim on TorahAnytime.com as well. And we want to thank you for joining us and wish you a wonderful Shabbos.